Welcome in, everybody. This is the Shrine Sports and Political Podcast coming to you live from Hilliard, Ohio. There are so many things that I want to get to. Okay, and I'll get to them today. Some political, some sports stuff. I want to address this shooting thing really quickly. Again, I'm not trying to lessen the importance of it. Killing journalists is not good. Killing anyone is not good. Killing journalists themselves is a fundamental attack on the institutions that made our government and democracy the way it is. The checks and balances that exist. Part of the reason for that is this institution that is the press. For example, obviously, when Richard Nixon illegally leaked classified information to the American people, obviously, that's what the movie The Post is about. Right? The movie The Post is about the idea of, and let me read the description here. The Washington Post races to catch up with the New York Times to expose a massive cover-up of government secrets that spans 3 decades and 4 U.S. presidents. Together they must overcome their differences as they risk their careers and very freedom to bring long-buried truths to light. Right, so the press is a fundamentally important institution, but at the same breath, there is an abuse of power in the sense, and it's not, I guess, what I'm trying to explain, and this is not an insult to liberal people. Rush Limbaugh, I'm not saying I'm Rush Limbaugh or Sean Hannity, but there's something different. Like, you don't hear about conservative people or people that align with conservative values doing talk radio. You don't hear about that. For example, like Sean Hannity goes to school to become a journalist. Rush Limbaugh drops out of school at 16 to become a radio person. You don't hear about that in, I don't even want to call it the conservative community, air quotes, because, like, to form a community based on political ideology is stupid. But in that sense, like, a lot of conservative people aren't very activist driven, and that's not an insult to liberals. That's not an insult to conservatives either. It can be perceived as both. It's not an insult to either. Conservatives tend not to look at things and view them as injustices to the world, rather view them as just general problems which need to be fixed, which make them, obviously politically, you come off as this arrogant, ignorant in terms of experience, highfalutin, rich guy that really doesn't care about people. So that also permeates to political perception of the party. But again, you don't see many Ben Shapiro's or Rush Limbaugh's or Sean Hannity's, as I've said. What's happened is, with the activist culture that has been created, and again, I've said this in multiple videos, the activist culture eventually was, is, or will continue to lead to bad things happening in the future. And it's not because I'm this sexist, racist person. Of course, social change for a society to exist needs to occur. But in order to identify the proper reasons for social change, if we're just gonna do things just because it's social change, then you've got an issue. But again, as I've said, the activist culture of liberal America has led them to want to yell and scream, and at this point, it's not enlightening people about the issues, because first of all, some of these issues are not real issues. Others are real issues, but there's obviously a biased nature. So what you see is a lot of these activists are liberal people. And therefore, when they permeate the platform, what do you have as a result? A liberal infiltrated media. I'm not trying to say, oh my god, CNN just feeds sheep the liberal propaganda stuff. I do think there is a strong element of bias in some ways. This is not a general thing. But in some ways, very, very rarely do I think there's propaganda. But as I have said, again, okay, this activist culture has created this vacuum for liberals to just shoot into this platform called the media, called social media, okay, called, this CNN and MSNBC and all these platforms, TV, audio, visual, any platform. What you have created is a bunch of activist liberals that go into this sector, permeate it, and spit out liberal views. Now, I don't think it's just sheep talking. But again, I do believe the liberal person, because they are a more activist type, they find things wrong with the world and tell everyone about them. The media loves that. That's what the media is. Find things wrong about society and tell the world about those problems. So, again, no, I just, that's why people believe the media is biased. Now, apparently, the guy that shot the media members had some gripe over the local media because he apparently he filed some type of suit against the paper, claiming a defamation suit. Sorry, a defamation suit. So, here's the deal, okay? People want me to react incredibly strongly. I don't think that sounded right. People want me to react very strongly to this. You know what? It's a terrible thing that media members died. It's a terrible thing that people died. It's a terrible thing that guns caused them. Okay, so the narrative has shifted. Now no one's talking about guns because the Santa Fe shooting, laws were broken. Here, laws were probably broken. Parkland, FBI procedures were broken, right? So that the guns are not the issue anymore because there were ways to solve this problem and no one decided to do anything about it, so we're gonna cry and moan and yell and scream and not do anything. Okay. So now we're going on this, oh my god, journalists are under attack because of the President of the United States. Alright, people. We don't know the political affiliation of this guy. He's Hispanic, and I don't want to assume anything, but at least, can we give it at least a 55-45 chance he was a Hillary supporter? If he voted for president? Alright, I'm just throwing this out there. I'm not making any assumptions, but based on the demographics and how people vote, that's that. Also, again, what do I say? Armed security needs to exist at all of these different locations. How in the world can you not have armed security around journalists at all times? This is a media establishment, not because of the Trump age. This should be a general rule. You protect the media. You protect government more than you protect other places, while you still should. Okay, you still should protect those places. I'm not saying you shouldn't. I'm not saying you shouldn't heavily protect them. But again, the media and the government have values, or they present more value to our constitutional republic than any other institution in America. Alright, so what are we at here? So the guy attacks the media for his own personal issue. It's a very local joint. It has nothing to do with national media. He's not a white deranged person. He's Hispanic, which I don't mean to cast any aspersions on anything, but I think it's worth pointing out because what people assumed this guy to be was, hey, he's a middle-aged to older, 40 to 65, white, Trump-loving, supremacist, media hater person. Dude. That probably was the exact opposite of the case. But again, this is trying to associate this with any politics at all. This specific case, we can talk about gun control. I've talked about it multiple times. And I addressed the issue with the media. The media can address this issue by not being an activist institution, an activist seeking kind of monarchy. What it should search for is got people that can report the news. And based on the issues, find the people that are competent that you didn't hire on political ideology. Find those people based on personal experience to analyze and to share their experience as to why something is right or why something is wrong. The media has been politicized. No one has shot at them. Okay, don't blame Maxine Waters for this. Don't blame Donald Trump for this. Don't blame Republicans for this. Don't blame Democrats for this. Don't blame all the white guys for this. Don't blame Hispanics for this. Don't blame anyone for this. There are deranged individuals throughout our society. But here is the God's honest truth. And I'm not trying to minimize this in any way, but to act like this, okay, and I stated it earlier, it's a bigger deal than usual because it's an attack on a part of the institution. But it's not, the institution will not be gone because of this. This isn't the start of anything. Yeah, what this is a deranged individual associated with a really small paper within a tri-state area. Okay, whose attack on this paper was not because of a specific news story or coverage of politics, but a personal gripe for which he filed a defamation suit in a local court of law. So what have you realized? All of this incident came about as a result of a bunch of specific small incidences that have nothing to do with the overall political climate. Absolutely nothing to do with the overall political climate of the United States right now. And it's not the New York Times we're talking about. We're talking about a small paper, the Capital Gazette in Annapolis. Some newspaper no one knew existed until yesterday. Local paper, local person, local court of law. And you're talking about a personal gripe versus a bigger issue here. Now, obviously, this should send a warning because of the political discourse that has been promulgated. Again, the political discourse in this country has been promulgated by Maxine Waters. The president has nothing to do with this. Do not blame the President of the United States for the incredibly rough political discourse in this country. Because I don't see MAGA hats going to Democrat politicians and screaming at them. They use social media because they're smart enough, and I'm not saying liberals aren't, but they reach the most people through social media. What's happening here is because of Maxine Waters. But again, let me say this. No politician, no person, the general discussion of political discourse has nothing to do with this specific event. Okay? And I don't want to go through the gun control stuff again. Not because I'm scared of the arguments or anything of that nature. But because I've already laid out the arguments. Go through my previous videos I've laid out the arguments time and time again. Okay? I shouldn't have to state my position on something 5 times. Alright? I stated it once. Here you go. Watch it. How how do we solve this specific issue? More security. Easy answer, has to be implemented. Let's see how that goes. That's not that's obviously easier said than done because the processes and things have to go through, but again, this is a horrible thing. You have a group of people, you have a sick, deranged individual that took lives. Okay? That's a sad, disgusting thing. But this is not an attack on our democracy. This is not an attack on any sacred institution, because we're talking about a specific paper. We're not talking about a political or government-based news organization such as the NYT or Fox or MSNBC, whatever you want to talk about at this point. So everybody, I know it's sad, I know it's disgusting. Obviously, I'm not condoning this, I'm condemning it to the highest order. But this is not the start of something. This never started anything. This isn't the result of political discourse from politicians. This is a solo incident that Americans should take care of, but not be worried in the sense that it's an attack on our government's institutions. I just want to talk about this really quickly. So, Justice Kennedy steps down. Everyone thinks... Okay, so I'm seeing two things. It's really ticking me off. It really is ticking me off. The issue here is that we're talking about taking down the sacred institutions of our country, take down a usually bipartisan administrator of justice because we didn't like how it ruled. So a bipartisan administrator of justice is now partisan because we didn't like how it ruled on like a couple things. I mean, this is insane. You talk about a racist criminal justice system, and you want to abolish the thing that possibly, in years and years to come, okay, could prevent the kind of the racist nature, if you want to say, of certain individuals, because there are people of higher authority that are unbiased, that have a moral conscience, that have a legal conscience, that will argue on your behalf. at the head of the justice system in America. You want to abolish that because a couple of rulings didn't go your way? It's ridiculous. You want to get rid of fundamental institutions in America. That's ridiculous. And again, the media, I'll say this is a bit controversial. It will seem contrary to what I've said before. But the media, it deserves to exist, it deserves to thrive, they deserve to be faced without harm. Obviously, they should be able to do their jobs. But the media as an institution, sacred to America, it has downgraded itself over the last, I think, 30, maybe 35 years because of this activist penetration into journalism. So, the institutions that I don't want to use the phrase, but I will, that made America great are being shown in the Supreme Court case, literally shown apart. In the media's case, I shouldn't say shown apart, but the value of it is being reduced because of the partisan nature of it. So, anyway, that's my take. Anyone that thinks, okay, that abortion is going to be repealed, even if it does, guess what's going to happen? It's going to go to the states because it's just, right now it's national, it's federal law because of the Supreme Court. Because they take away the idea that it is legal. Doesn't make it illegal. That it just doesn't mean that federally you have to administer this. It doesn't mean you don't have to. It just means it doesn't force you not to. It just doesn't all it does is make sure that it doesn't force you to do this. Okay, so it'll go to states, and the Texas will probably make it illegal. But let's be honest. Politicians are smart. The women's rights movement is a thing, and I'll give them credit for this. They've changed the Republican platform because of the voting power that they have. So the idea that this will be completely illegal, that abortion will be gone, that no one can abort their kids, absolutely false. Now here's why I'm optimistic, because I think the position that will be taken will be a more morally righteous position. And I think in that regard, in terms of like conservative states, you can have more morally right positions. But in liberal states, it'll still be the same. Like, in Texas, you're allowed to have an abortion. If this law were taken down, you're allowed not to have an abortion. But that doesn't mean if Texas says you can't have an abortion, that you still can't. Instead of it being a federal issue, it'll be a state issue. Which is why, because it's a state issue, because politicians are still running for candidacy in these states, this is not going to become a major issue. Why? because politicians want votes. The GOP position has become considerably more moderate on abortion over the last 50 years because of the women's rights movement. And I'll give them partial credit for this. And the reason why I give them partial and not full credit is because the position of the women's rights movement is completely objective morality. It doesn't have morality play a role in any of this, and that is just frankly disgusting. The Republican position is a little too religiously moral. It doesn't it doesn't accommodate full morality. It accommodates some morality. The Bernie Sanders position, the women's rights position on this lacks complete morality. But because of their power, they've moved the Republican Party to a more moderate, accommodating of all the different moral aspects of this kind of position. But I only give them half credit because the women's rights own position on this is completely lost in morality, which is disgusting. But again, no one needs to be worried that the press is going to die out because of people with guns. No one needs to be worried that abortion is going to be gone and that civil rights is going to be lost because apparently Trump's going to appoint some racist white racist white supremacist judge guy. By the way, 2 of the 5 candidates are women that he stated, so take away that sexism label. The outrage in this country, I've said this again and again and again, people need to stop freaking out about stuff. You know what no one cares about? Fiscal policy. Monetary policy. That's what people should be worried about. Instead, you want to talk about crapshoot social issues. Oh my God, is the media under attack because of Trump? By the way, media, you brought this on yourselves because of the politicization of the institution. It's still very important, and I'm not trying to reduce the importance quite as much as the average Trump supporter. But again, you brought this on yourselves. You continue to bring it on yourselves. Abortion is not going to be gone within a year. Stop it. Stop it with the stupid social causes. And the reason why I call them stupid is not because they're unimportant. It's because there are so many things that as a country, generally, we should be way more worried about. Than abolishing the Supreme Court, than abolishing guns. Instead of taking minute social causes and using them as the poster child to take away the rights that made the country the way it is, we should actually be focusing on really important things. And we're not. And that's my fear for this country. I don't fear the media is going to die out. Oh, come on, that's a joke. Oh my God. Women are going to lose their rights and blacks are going to lose their rights because of Trump. Are you kidding me? Come on. Nothing, really nothing the only worry I have with him is if he starts a stupid war. But again, I believe he's surrounded with enough smart people to not start a stupid war. If he doesn't do that, nothing that terrible is going to happen. Chill out, everybody. This is the Ashish and Ryan Sports and Political Podcast coming to you live from Hilliard, Ohio. We will be right back talking to you about LeBron, free agency, lots of stuff to get into sports-wise. We gotta take a break first, though. See y'all later. This is the Ashish and Ryan Sports and Political Podcast coming to you live from Hilliard, Ohio.